Welcome again to the podcast where we talk bags. I'm Marlon Vandermeer, but you might know me as the Bagfather.
And I'm Jen Zemba.
In this podcast series, we will be talking to everyone involved in aviation about getting your possessions around the world safely.
This is another of our episodes recorded in Chicago at Willis Tower, the home of United Airlines.
I read something recently that has really got me thinking. Have you seen the latest white paper produced by T2RL and Inc. Innovation that's shaking up how we think about airline operations?
Yes, I did, Marlon, and I really think everyone in our industry needs to read this paper. It explores how airlines manage the Offer Order Settled Delivery, or OOSD model. One of my biggest takeaways was the debate between legacy versus innovation. Really, it's about whether airlines should stick with evolving their current systems, like the departure control system, or if they should pivot to something entirely new.
Right, and that's where their proposed retail delivery systems comes into play. Unlike the traditional systems, which focus mainly on check-in and boarding, this new system would allow for continuous passenger engagement, from booking, baggage, to in-flight and even post-trip.
Exactly. Think of it as shifting from a reactive approach to a proactive one. This opens up a ton of new retailing options and real-time interactions with passengers. It's a major evolution from just managing operations to creating a personalized experience.
And speaking of retail, they highlighted how integrating payments across all these touchpoints simplifies the entire process for passengers. Imagine being able to upgrade your flight product mid-flight without breaking a sweat.
Such a game changer. It's clear that this white paper is pushing airlines to rethink how they approach the entire travel experience. If they can successfully transition from legacy systems, the benefits for both airlines and passengers is massive.
Totally agree. For those who want to dive deeper, the white paper is a must-read and can be found on the Inc. Innovation website.
Each time we talk about bags on a plane, much of the discussion surrounds transferring bags from one plane to another and what happens when they don't connect. Darin Juby is the head of baggage transformation for Future Travel Experience, or FTE. He has over 25 years of industry experience championing optimization and innovation within airport operations at Toronto Pearson Airport. Darin has a unique ability to connect the entire flow of the airport from curbside to the air.
Darin, welcome here in Chicago at United Airlines. We are here in the headquarters of United in the Willis Towers, and they are pioneering baggage innovation. But you really know something about baggage innovation, overseeing the baggage innovation working groups as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what you're currently doing?
Well, great to be here and great to see you. Yeah, I spent my entire career at Toronto Pearson Airport. Great experiences, did many different departments, many different areas of the airport. And it wasn't until the end of my career that I ended up in baggage. Just a quick story. It's kind of an interesting, I kind of think it's kind of a funny story how we ended up there. The latter part of my career, baggage was really, I'll call it broken at Toronto Pearson. We needed someone to lead the project, so my chief operating officer came to me and said, hey, will you lead a project and see if we can reorganize and improve baggage? I said, sure. We did a project that really brought all of the, not only just the baggage team together, but also the operations team and the government agencies and the airlines. And it was really an interesting collaborative project that we did. And what came out of it in the end was some great ideas. And one of the most important thing that when I was talking to my CEO at the end, so, okay, the most important thing is he's going to lead baggage. And then he sort of paused and looked at me. And I went, you mean me? And he said, yeah, will you do it? I said, yeah, 100% I'll do it. And it wasn't something that I ever thought I wanted to do, but it truly, and I can only speak from my experience at Toronto, but I don't think it's all that different in many other airports, is that baggage isn't always the sexy part of the airport. You walk into the terminals, you see the great spaces. I worked in customer experience and terminals. I did all of those roles, and they were very interesting and very in the face of everyone. But baggage was always the forgotten area of the terminal. What I found was that what you could do in baggage, you could almost run a bit of your own company and a bit of my entrepreneurial spirit to do that within a larger company like the airport. And so it allowed me to try different things. You can do things to bags that you can't do to people. There's a bit of tongue-in-cheek there. So you can make a bag go a certain way. You can move it. You can take pictures of it. You can do a whole bunch of things to bags that you honestly can't do to people. And that leads to more innovation. And we were able to, and because baggage at the time, it was around 2017 when I went over there, There wasn't a whole lot of industry experts in baggage because it was sort of the area where most people get sent for a few years and then they leave again, whether it's the airline or the airport business. And what I found was really ripe for doing some really innovative, cool things. So right away, and made some changes, got some results very quickly. And then we built up some momentum of the innovation side. And that got me working with Future Travel Experience. I got a call out of the blue from one of the guys, Ryan, and said, we're starting this new baggage innovation working group. Do you want to join? And I'm like, what's it about? And this was actually during COVID. So I definitely had a bit more time on my hands. So that probably the timing of that worked out well. Not that that was a good thing for our industry. I came on and he said, do you want to be a captain? And I said, sure. And then I brought along my good friend, Jason Odie from Air Canada. And we both became captains together because of all the cool things we're doing in Toronto. And then shortly after that, the gentleman who was leading it was moving on to something different. So they wanted me to interview the next person. And I got a bit of background on them. They didn't have any really airport experience, but they had some innovation experience. And I said to Dan, the gentleman who runs FTE, the CEO, I said, what's involved? Maybe I'll do it. So he told me what was involved. I went back to talk to I was still at the airport at the time, and looked at the time commitment and decided that I would lead it. And in leading it, I took it a slightly different way. The group was, smaller back then. It was probably 30, 35 companies were part of it. I'm a very practical person. I can talk about high level and strategy. Those are all things that I can do, but that's not what I like to do. I like to do a proof of concept, to try things out, to really dig into what could be done. So I took it over. We started to do some proof of concepts, and that seemed to pick up some speed really quickly. And then within a matter of 2 years of leading it, we've now got over 130 members. We've got 6 in-person meetings a year now. We used to have 3. But also, I would say, if you ask many people about the group that we have, it's really a group that get along and they really talk. And it's not just talking at the calls or in the in-person meetings. It's also the conversations that happen in the evening. Maybe we're having a coffee or a cocktail after. So to me, the group is really collaborative, and it doesn't really matter if you're a competitor. You could have 2 baggage system suppliers that are fierce competitors, but when they get in these groups, they talk about what they're working on. And really, what we're all trying to do is just make baggage better.
Yeah, you're doing a fantastic job. I have to hand it to you, because I think without you, this wouldn't be as successful as it turned out. Your unique capability to see the innovation and make introductions and getting airlines to participate. Kudos to you. I think you're doing a really, really good job.
Thank you.
Talking about highlights of your career, and what is your biggest achievement there? Yeah, what's your legacy?
You can't innovate by yourself. Yeah, I couldn't go in there and say, hey, I'm got all these ideas, guys. Let's all put into place and follow me. Here we go. One thing that I learned right away was something like baggage. There's so many different, and I'll use a Canadian analogy. There's so many people in the canoe. They've all got to be rowing the same direction. Because when I first went there was people in the canoe. Some were rowing with us. Some were hitting us when they have the paddle. Some were rowing backwards. And there's no way we could innovate like that. That was the first thing we had to do, was to get everyone rowing the same direction. And why? When we first started, there was lots of finger pointing, blaming. Oh, that's ops' fault. That's maintenance's fault. That's IT's fault. Didn't matter. By working together, when I first went over there, part of the project was to do some POCs, really quick POCs, like really scrappy. Came up with, what are some of the problems, and then we got the airlines, government agencies, maintenance, operations, IT, and we're all in a room. We'd meet every week, and we'd say, okay, here's the POCs we're going to do, and we're going to run them for a week or 2 in the next couple of months. Yeah. And lo and behold, look what happens. When you work together, you do some really cool stuff. And the other thing, it's fun to work together. Yeah, you're not politicking, you're not coercing someone to do it. You're doing some fun POCs, and people realize, hey, this is much better. Working together is a lot more fun, and we get things done, and we make some change. So then what I said was, for the summer, I said, hey, guys, how would you guys like to work shift work? Because they're Monday to Friday. I said, work 4 days on, 4 days off, spell each other off, and work with our contractors and our ops people to try to improve what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And at first, they were like, they're a little hesitant. But then literally within weeks of them then handing off to each other and working together, we made improvements leaps and bounds. So the first thing we had to do was sort of get everything working, like bring everything back up to straight and level, we'll call it. Then as soon as that was done, then it was quite easy to get them to do different things then. Because now, got it working, great. Now let's fix the problems. Why is that happening? How could we do this differently? And then with them all sitting together, the conversations that happened, outside of the meeting room was incredible. We were making changes so quickly and making some positive impacts that we were being recognized, like by the CEO at some of our meetings. And we have on our wall the mindsets of baggage, and one of the first ones was start with yes. And that mindset still is up there to this day, and that was sort of put up amongst the whole organization. So, that's sort of how we made some changes in the innovation side. And it's not easy, it's not overnight. It's a culture, but we also, just some other experiences that I've had is we had many trials and tribulations of saying, well, here's the innovation officer. This person's in charge of innovation. And if I could give any advice to whoever's listening to this, is that you can't have one person does not do innovation. It's got to be a mindset. It's got to be, and the mindset, it takes effort. When you put that in, I can guarantee, in my experience, that you get the benefits out of it right away. So we're trying to get proactive on how we could control the baggage system, because that's the other thing that we were always chasing, is that it used to really frustrate me, and it still does today, that sometimes we'll have a significant event, or airports will, and then we sometimes say, well, we didn't see that coming. We knew how many bags were put in the planes in all the cities that were coming. We knew what time the planes were coming, yet we were surprised when they all showed up. And it's not that easy. I know it's difficult, but baggage is one with a lot of data. And that's what we really focused on, was how do we get the data, share it with the users, and use the data to then innovate. Instead of allocating your resources at an airport, which are extremely expensive, we started to use data for it. Airlines would say to us, hey, we want our flights on these areas. Yeah.
Fast forward a little bit to where we are right now with Baggage Innovation Working Group. We see a lot of things. You just touched about data, the data that you collected and used to improve processes within Toronto. That's still today a big topic. We had other guests on our show that were in a very early phase on collecting data, set aside sharing data. Let's talk a little bit about the involvement of airlines and airlines all reinventing wheels when it comes to baggage. Take us through a little bit on how you see the whole landscape of innovation across all the airlines.
When it comes to the expectation of a passenger and baggage in airlines, is that we're not meeting their expectations. There's lots of innovation about giving passengers information.
What do you mean with not meeting expectations? I want to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Passengers want their bags. I say this a lot. When I order something from Amazon and I don't track them, I just assume they're going to show up. So you expect packages to show up when they do. Since the pandemic and with all the things we get sent to our house these days, they've got it figured out, and they figured it out quickly. Whereas airports and airlines, we haven't quite figured that out yet. We're getting better. Every year it gets a bit better, but there's also this apathy throughout our industry, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, airlines, airports, myself included. There's like the acceptance is, we lose some bags, that's fine.
My name is the Bagfather, so I can say something about it. It's a very fragmented industry. If you talk to passengers that are experiencing lost bag, those stories are horrendous. Mm-hmm. And it's no surprise that big tech companies trying to solve this, because the industry itself is not solving it. And they're all reinventing the wheel. So what would you like to say to those airlines that had good intentions, but the execution is really poor?
The only way that the industry is going to move the millions of bags that they move a week, the number is massive.
On any given time, there are 16 million bags up in the air.
So to move that much, if you were to take that to an Amazon or to a FedEx and ask them to move that many packages a day with the processes that we have today, they wouldn't do well either. We do have some of the benefits in the industry. You've got the commonality, right? You've got the large carriers, but then they operate again, comparing it to logistics, they're operating in different airports. They have different processes, that have different rules, and it's not quite the same, but we can't use that as an excuse. So we need to take the technologies, in my opinion, that have been used in logistics companies today, get rid of the excuses that, well, they're not nice square boxes and they're not flat, and those are all real reasons. They are what they are. Legitimate. And the bags, would it be nice for everyone to have the same suitcase? Sure. Is that going to happen? No. So what we need to do is take the reality of what that is, and then not make excuses, but get solutions for that. And we've got to then use, in my opinion, you got to use consistent data. That's key, and we have a lot of it. As I said earlier, we use probably 10, 15% of the data that exists out there. There's lots of good information out there that we could use even better. Then there's the process, how the things are moved, how the equipment is done. And to me, as long as you're counting on a human with two hands to move things, you can never get the consistency that you want from a thing like manufacturing. Manufacturing is all done by robotics and or machines that do that, and we have to do that with baggage. And again, it's not a way to get rid of people at all, but unfortunately, people make mistakes. People read tags wrong. Even some of the equipment that we have, there's human elements to it. So if we want a consistent operation like a factory, like a logistics company, then we need to automate more and have better processes. We also need to have the way that things move back and forth between planes, as an example. The tubes aren't going to change. Maybe they'll become a flying wing one day, but for the most part, you're putting bags into a tube. Containers are great. Power stow, things that go into the plane, those are snakes. Those are all great, but to me, that's the thing that has to change. Because once you are able to do that faster, the same way as containers were a bit faster, you need to apply the same thing to bulk loaded bags. Then you need to apply the same to transfer bags. And so to me, it's that part. And from what we see in our group is that type of equipment is coming. People are talking about it. People are starting to invent it. People are open to use it. They're trialing it. And I would hope in the next 5 years that we see a significant change in that. And if you start doing that, to me, I guarantee you will see a better performance in delivery of bags, less lost bags, and then a better passenger experience. So we'll slowly notch up the trust that the passengers have in losing bags.
If tomorrow all of these innovations magically come together and we have the right mix of everything to deliver bags as close to 100% as we'll ever get, how long do you think it takes for the passenger to really trust airlines, airports again to deliver their bags? Because I don't think it's just fees that stop people from checking their bags. It's really trusting that they're going to have their things when they get to the other side.
That's a good question. How long? Like anything, we're human beings and we don't necessarily trust overnight. So yeah, I think we're going to have to prove ourselves that we can do it. You mentioned fees, Jen. That's a significant revenue source for airlines. If people trusted that, would they check more bags? I'm not an airline person, but I would tend to think yes. So it's a bit of a win-win. It's the chicken and egg. You have to invest the money to get the trust up. Then your baggage fees potentially could drive some more revenue for sure. And then doing that, you also can't forget about every time you travel, that then the boarding process should be that much better. And the lineups at security, and it's just a domino that would then help everything go a bit smoother.
I get that. And probably within your baggage innovation working group, those airlines are participating with good intentions, but it's hard to see yet. What do they need to do to make it more visible? What are the initiatives that all the airlines are taking within your group to come to what Jen just described? Are they in your group just for, see us innovating, or is it genuinely participating and in implementing and allocating the budgets?
There's varying levels of what people are doing. There are some people in our group that work for certain airlines or airports that are they're leading the way. They're out there leading the charge, making the change. There's also lots of airlines, airports that don't want to be first adopters, right? It's an expensive industry. And I think, maybe come back to that. There's a bit of an answer to that too. But I think that from the group, you need a few of the big ones to go. If you had a few bigger ones go, that would make probably a significant difference. Who might those be? There's probably, of the 50, 60 airlines we have, there's probably a good 20, 30% of those that are really, truly looking to make that difference. And why are they doing it? Are they doing it because good customer service? Yes. But more importantly, a lot of it comes down to in my opinion, the ROI. What's the return on investment? If you're going to do this, what are you going to get back for it? And we've seen after the pandemic, again, the labor problems have gotten better, but I don't think it'll ever go back to the way that it was. People don't want to be lifelong baggage handlers. It's hard work, and it's in some really bad conditions sometimes with cold, heat. I can't think of many other jobs where you physically do a repetitive motion like that hasn't been sort of changed.
With very little gratification. Like they don't get praised for what they do right. They only get beat down when they don't do something right.
Yeah, I think so. Even the people that come in our group and listen, say they're on the fringe, as an example. Maybe they show up to some meetings here and there. I still think they take a lot away from what it is that they hear we're talking about. But then the people that are truly looking to make a difference, they're making connections. I could list off 20, 30 people, because we also have suppliers, that have come to the group. And I can't think of any who did not make a connection with someone. So I would say, from the group, do people want to make a change? Yes, the suppliers want to sell their products for sure. And then maybe I'll sort of touch a bit upon how do we get there, the old chicken and egg, because, when you look at, we've got a fair number of startup companies, and the startup companies, in order to get some momentum in this industry, it can take a lot of money to get going there. And then some of the startup companies, that means a bit of a struggle. So then if they don't get the money to start it up, then they'll never scale up and get larger. So I think there's been some talk and I saw a bit in Toronto before I left that, maybe there's room for, instead of capital investments in a lot of these things, whether it's capital investments in software or equipment, maybe there's a bit of a service model. And because we're innovating so quickly, and take electronic automated vehicles as an example, those are going to change. Do you want to buy one now for a lot of money and then 3 years from now something brand new comes out? Don't know. I would say probably not if I was in Toronto. But if it's something that could be used, you pay a monthly fee or a per unit fee, whatever that is, I think that's an interesting concept with this, because then the suppliers of these new technologies can then continue to innovate. And as they do, it may be software upgrades, it may be hardware upgrades, doesn't matter, things will change. And then from business model perspective, airlines, airports aren't laying out millions and millions of dollars for this stuff. And then the people that are supplying it can then have, some recurring revenue. And from that can then build up and then keep on innovating and providing better equipment. So,
how do you encourage airlines to collaborate and partner within specific projects? And I'm specifically talking about airlines, because if one airline is doing this and the other airline is doing that, sometimes it doesn't make sense.
So how do we get them to collaborate? In our meetings, we always ask people to share. So we find that if one airline shares, you may not be part of the same alliance, but another airline will add what they're doing. We're seeing airlines that are now getting together and having meetings with people that aren't even in their alliance. I think that's been a pretty big change.
Going back to RFID, Marlon's favorite thing in the world, every airline was basically working in a silo to create their own solution for that. When you're just reinventing the wheel, there's only so many ways to utilize RFID and implement it. So it's refreshing to see people are learning about specific areas and sharing that knowledge and inviting others to take part in it instead of just trying to get one up in the industry and everybody else behind.
Yeah, and I think when they learn, by trialing out some of these things and learning from each other, then in the end, there's not a whole lot of suppliers of different things in our industry. It's not as if there's 50 or 60 or 70 different suppliers of equipment for baggage. There's probably less than half of that, depending on what you're talking about, of course. But yeah, I think that's where they see that it doesn't have to all be the same, but it's got to be pretty similar. Again, another thing I think that always makes it a bit harder is that you always have to think, how can this work in city A and city B? And you look at how could this work in a really big mega hub airport, and how could this work in the smallest airport? Because that passenger maybe starts at the small airport, goes through the big airport, ends up at the small airport. So they all have to have that same way of the bag processing through and be able to identify it, track it, share data. All that still has to exist.
And then still be scalable for future increases in throughput.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
What do you think in 30 years from now, if you had your way about it, what would getting on an airplane with baggage hold?
And how many AirTags would you put in your bag?
I put 0 AirTags in my bag. That is my goal, is that everyone trusts the industry. There's no one puts an AirTag in their bag because there's no reason for it, in my opinion. Now, you still need to tag the bags. So there's an electronic bag. They have something in it. I really hope that 30 years from now, people are not tracking their bags, because that means we haven't gotten any trouble.
And they're paying for a service already, so now they're duplicating their costs in order to make sure their bag gets someplace. Like, leave it with the owner where it should be.
That's one of the problems that I see in the Baggage Innovation Working Group and the airlines working all together. We are forgetting one group here. That's the passenger. And creating a passenger delight, that needs to happen, because the bag journey itself, like you said, is broken. We have seen that bag journey has been broken in many things, and people are just seeking alternatives. Either they not check their bag or take a lot of precautions to make sure they can track their bag. For me, tracking a bag is a stupid thing, because that's only to make you more nervous. What I want to do is a fantastic experience and want to know, hey, my bag is there when I arrive.
Right.
I have another question in this case, because I know some big tech companies also reached out to the Baggage Innovation Working Group and see how they could help. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we had a rough couple of summers coming out of the pandemic, and that almost, I would say, brought us to almost an all-time low in modern baggage handling, which is why people were putting tiles and AirTags in their bags, because airports didn't know where they were. We had meltdowns. And so the tech companies companies, I think, saw that as a quick win for ways to then track their bag. As much as there was some passenger it gave them some assurances they knew where the bag was. The reality was a lot of that technology relies on other devices being close to it. In the baggage system, that's not always the case. The bags aren't in public area. So yeah, there was definitely some false readings of this the last place they saw the bag, but not necessarily where the bag is. Yeah, and I think that caused a lot of angst because now passengers are, saying, well, my bag is here, sending pictures of their phone. And it's not actually there.
But on the other hand, we are here with United Airlines, and they have a fantastic tracking tool for their bags inside their app, unique. And I'm actually surprised that it hasn't been rolled out more intensive over other airlines.
My own personal opinion on that's great. Love it. Personally, why, to Jen's point earlier, why am I tracking my bag? I gave it to you. Maybe I paid $40. I'm not sure what they charge for baggage fees. Why am I tracking it? I don't give my package to Amazon and say, here, I'll make sure that it went from this city to that city. Oh, now it didn't leave that city. I'm calling Amazon and saying, no,
you're not managing the shipment.
I'm with you. I understand. It gives you ease of mind that the bag is traveling behind you and it's loaded into the aircraft, that it is there, that you can expect it.
So what I would like then as a passenger personally, and what I believe is that if I have an app, I flew here today on an airline, if I should be able to select in, do I want to know where my bag is? And I don't want to know that it got given to the baggage handler, given to the plane. I want to know, is it on the plane? Yes or no? If that's the case, if I want to sit down in my seat, it goes, bing, your bag is loaded. Great, have a good flight. That might be good enough for me. What I also, more importantly, want to know is that I want personally to have the airline look out for me. So not just track my bag, but so if it didn't make it on, something happened, that's fine. So then come to me in my seat before I get to my destination city and have me do whatever it is you need to do. Where would you like your bag? How can we deliver it? Do all that for me in the air so that when I arrive at my city, I walk out and probably even get out faster because I don't have to wait for a bag and it gets shipped to my hotel.
Right.
Maybe you want to apologize. You may want to ask what's in there. And I say, oh, it's important. I'm going to my daughter's wedding. It's my tuxedo. Then maybe they can do something. So I give you my bag that if you want to tell me where it is, great. And then if you tell me proactively that it's not going to make it, then I can tell you how important it is to me. I can say, don't worry about it. I'm going home. And then maybe it's cheaper for the airline. Okay, we'll give it to you in a week. And here's whatever it is they want to do.
I think that's a pretty small percentage of people that you would have to be concerned about that, right?
I know that he speaks to a lot of people that are really innovating. But I do have some questions, and I would like to get your personal view. How does traveling with baggage look like in 10 years from now?
I hope that it's personalized. If you're the person that wants to have experience where you leave your house and you've got maybe young kids and strollers and golf clubs and you're going on a holiday, if you want to have that picked up from your house and dropped off to your resort hotel, I hope that option's available and it's seamless. If you want to bring it to the airport with you, I hope that's seamless as well, where you walk into the airport, that we're not applying paper tags to bags. The bags go into baggage systems and then they are tracked, the information shared. The people that are handling the bags, they're going on there consistently. What it looks like doesn't matter to me, as long as they get on there consistently every time. That when you claim your bag at the end, if you choose to get it from the airport, that when you walk down, that they're there. So it's the speed and it's the line to the passenger what they want.
I share your vision on this one. Jen, how do you see it? Because there's a lot of airport development involved as well. And how do we get rid of all those carousels?
Darin talked a little bit about attacking bags earlier in the journey, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for that, whether it's from your home or if you are arriving at the airport via train or via taxi, Uber, to be able to include those people in the ecosystem of checking bags or delivering again once you reach your destination. I think that can be a reality. I don't think it's a reality tomorrow, but I do think that when you're looking at the entire journey, does not start when you get into the airport. It starts long before that. So let's try and make it as enjoyable as we can from the very beginning.
And as an airport designer, as you guys do, I think it'd be significantly less expensive to have that processing done not below where the people are.
Not only is it less expensive, but it opens up space for things that can actually make money instead of spend money. So now if we're reducing ticket counter space because more people are checking bags on the train coming in, that's retail space. And that is important to airports to be able to have funds coming in that isn't reliant just on tickets that are being purchased. And then it's better for the passenger also because ticket prices don't necessarily have to keep going up to cover the costs at an airport.
Nope, and looking forward to it. This is the fun part.
And for me, you're the right person on the right spot. I hope you will be doing this for the next period of time as well, and energizing the whole group and make sure that they are transforming and they are aware that things need to change. And you are the right person to create bridges between those airlines. I would like to thank you for your participation on the Bagfather. Is there anything you would like to ask to one of our guests, to me, to Jen, or future guests?
It'd be interesting to have on your podcast maybe an airline, airport, maybe just the two to start with. It'd be interesting to have two of them here and maybe have a similar discussion to see what their thoughts are on this and have a bit of a, not a debate, but a bit of a discussion about what they see is coming. And it'd be interesting to see, maybe not two people that work together a lot, maybe two people who are a bit, from different areas of the world potentially. It'd be interesting to see that because I think that airports and airlines are working much better together, but there's still room to improve on that. It'd be interesting to see what each would say.
Thank you to Darin Juby. Great conversations.
Absolutely. The man deserves a lifetime achievement for his work in baggage. I'm very proud of Darin.
Crazy, and I love how he ended up in baggage, and like so many of us, that's just where you stay.
Absolutely. He's a force to reckon with. You can check out more episodes of at thebagfather.com or by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget to get in touch on the website to tell us your baggage-related experiences and mishaps. In the meantime, thank you for listening, and join us next time for more baggage-related conversation with the Bagfather.